Hello, I'm Andrew, and this is my Series 3 of the weekly podcasts 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. These podcasts build confidence and know-how. Consequently, they can help you achieve happiness at work. By the way, that's also the title of my book, available at Amazon and from the book's website, My Happiness at Work. Now for today's episode in Series 3. This is episode 24 in Series 3, 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. Today's episode is empathy, the hidden power to boost your career. Empathy is more than just a buzzword. Some people call it a superpower that can transform careers. Could it do the same for you? Well, quite possibly if you take empathy seriously and don't dismiss it as a flaky distraction. Here's one thing I can promise you. Understanding empathy will set you apart from most of your competition. Many people know about empathy. Few, though, bother to do what you're doing right now, spending precious time taking in fresh information about empathy, ways to practice it, and how it can propel your success. A once common view about empathy is that it was too soft for the hard-charging, competitive world of, say, business. By now, dozens of studies have shown the opposite. Empathy isn't a weakness, but something of a workplace superpower. For example, when people work with empathic co-workers, they tend to be more satisfied in their jobs, more willing to take creative risks, and more likely to help their colleagues. Increasingly, if your colleagues are millennials and General Zers or Gen Zers, they don't merely hope for empathy from you and your leaders, they demand it. As with any good thing, you can have too much of it. Those working in the caring professions, for instance, may simply run out of energy for ever more empathy and its handmaiden compassion. What's empathy then? Quite simply, it's your natural ability to understand how other people feel. That's it. Nothing more than that. That's simple. We can expand on that. Empathy is your ability to see things from other people's point of view. You imagine yourself in their situation. For millennia, people have been fascinated with empathy, so there's endless advice about it. Most famously, you can't really understand another person's experience until you've walked a mile in their shoes. You can imagine yourself in their shoes. Essentially, it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes and feeling what they're feeling. Imagine your colleague's joy when they receive a promotion, or the anxiety that your team members experience during a tight deadline. That's empathy in action. So, does everyone have empathy? And if they do, why don't you? Correction. You most certainly do possess empathy, but like playing tennis or running a marathon, it takes practice to do it well. Empathy is a skill you can acquire, and it's entirely learnable. Signs of your empathic tendencies include: you actively listen, genuinely hear others, and seek to understand their perspectives. You're emotionally aware, sensing how people feel, even when they don't explicitly express it. You help others by extending a helping hand to those suffering or struggling. If you're particularly good at empathy, you may encounter boundary challenges. Because you care deeply about others, you find it hard to set limits to your emotional responses. So here's how empathy works. Just as people laugh in many ways, guffaw, chuckle, snicker, empathy also comes in different flavors. Empathy isn't just one size fits all. Different situations call for various types of empathy. You can have 4 ways to show or exercise empathy: cognitive, emotional, affective, and somatic. Do these distinctions really matter in real life? Well, it all depends on how much you want to master empathy, since each person may use a different approach to understanding others. For example, cognitive empathy means you mentally understand another person's perspective. It's like putting yourself in their shoes and imagining what it would be like to be in their situation. For example, suppose a friend is interviewed and fails to win the job that they desire. You can recognize their disappointment and understand why they feel that way. What matters is you grasp how the other person thinks. With emotional empathy, you feel another person's emotions. For example, if someone at work starts crying, you might feel sad. Their emotional state impacts your own. When you mentally understand someone's feelings and share those, you're using affective empathy. Here you combine mental understanding with shared feelings. It's not just about knowing how someone feels, It's also about experiencing those emotions yourself. And finally, there's somatic empathy, when you physically react to what someone else experiences. It's like feeling a knot in your stomach when your friend shares their anxiety. It's a bodily response to someone else's feelings. So what use is empathy at work? Well, take the power of empathy and use it to help your career. The different kinds of empathy show you have many ways of responding to others at work. For example, you can use empathy to encourage team collaboration. Take time to understand your colleagues' feelings and perspectives. You'll work better with them once you've attuned to their needs, leading to smoother interactions. Empathy also helps you connect with clients. When you understand their pain points, you can tailor solutions that meet their needs. A winning formula. Another use of your empathy talents is resolving conflicts at work. Instead of escalating conflicts, you can use your empathy to seek common ground. Empathy encourages people to listen, validate emotions, and find win-win solutions. Networking is yet another helpful way to apply your empathy talents. Empathy makes networking authentic. When genuinely caring about others, your connections become meaningful and lasting. A definite win. You can probably think of many situations at work where empathy could be a handy power. For example, welcoming a nervous new joiner to work. Empathy allows you to ease that person's anxiety. You can introduce them to colleagues and offer guidance. Another example is giving a client pitch. Before you let loose, consider the client's perspective. What challenges do they face? How can your proposal address their pain points? Or consider taking part in feedback sessions. When you offer feedback, you empathize with your co-worker. Balance criticism with encouragement. And my final thoughts? Empathy is a strength, not a weakness. As your career advances, embrace this superpower. Be the colleague who listens, the one who understands, and the professional who cares. You've been listening to an episode of Series 3 of my weekly podcast, 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. You can hear the other podcasts at the 50ways.site, that's 50.site. There are nearly 100 titles and you can search for any issue that interests you. If you have any questions, you can always drop me a line from there. Also, check out my book, Happiness at Work. It's packed with great stories, compelling advice and suggestions for tackling real issues that you can encounter at work. It's at Amazon or at the book's website, myhappinessatwork.com. There's also an audio version if you prefer listening. Join me next week for another unmissable episode in Series 3. Bye for now.